All right, so I wanted to do a second IPS Game Boy Color. I had done one for a coworker. He had bought the parts, and I just did the installation for him. But I wanted to do one for myself. I have a purple Game Boy Color that is bone stock, and I thought I would try this aftermarket Pokemon Edition case just to see what the quality was like. I was really curious because this thing was like 15 bucks, and it came with the matching screen cover and the matching colored buttons. And for 15 bucks, I was very curious as to what the quality was going to be like. So, like always, we will start by opening the original stock Game Boy Color here. We have, of course, 6 tri-wing screws in the back that will need to come out. 2 of them are inside the battery compartment. And once we pry the back off, it's fairly simple in that it's just one circuit board and everything stays in the front half. So basically you can set the back half aside. We're not reusing the shell in this case, so we really just need to get the motherboard out of this thing. We're not reusing the screen, we're not reusing the buttons or the shell. We'll just be reusing the membranes actually. So the motherboard with the speaker attached, and we're going to get the rubber membranes out of here. We can set all this stuff aside. We can clean those buttons, but we obviously don't need to clean the case. So here's a first look at this Pokemon shell, I should call it. And as you can see, it's got the screen cover there, and like I said, it's got the required buttons. It's got a blue D-pad, and then I think it's a green B button and a red A button. Something like that. But yeah, it came with the colored buttons and this little sticker to kind of top it off on the rear. I also bought the 3D printed brackets, the alignment brackets for this one. The first Game Boy Color, IPS Game Boy Color that I did, my coworker did not buy the brackets, so I had to sort of manually align the screen. And with this one, I thought I would just buy those brackets. It did make it a lot easier, so definitely get the brackets. The shell was sort of, oddly enough, like somewhat pre-cut, but it wasn't quite pre-cut enough. There was a little bit of plastic that I had to cut to get the screen to fit. And the spot around the D-pad still had to be cut. If you've never seen this before, the IPS screen that goes in a Game Boy Color is much, much larger than the original screen. It actually protrudes down close to where the D-pad is, so you've got to clear some of this extra plastic out of the way to make room for the screen. It doesn't really affect the feel of the D-pad, luckily. You do have to cut a little bit into the D-pad as well, as you can see here. But again, doesn't really affect the feel of the D-pad. If you do it right, there should be enough of a gap. I'm going to stick the screen cover down now, so when we put the screen in, it's already protecting the screen. But of course, we'll leave that clear plastic on there for last. A, to keep the screen cover from scratching, and B, because obviously that's the best part and you want to save it for last. So now that we're fitting the IPS screen in, we can peel the clear cover off of it. So I just had a bit of an idea here. I'm going to reuse the tape that was the like protective screen cover tape off the LCD panel that I took off the front of the LCD. I'm going to put that on the back to act as insulation. Sometimes they give you like tape to do that with, but I didn't get any this time. So yeah, I can just reuse that. This mounting bracket is awesome. It's super tight, but it holds that screen in absolutely perfectly. It aligns it perfectly, and there's no need to tape the screen down. This will hold it in place. It's awesome. Definitely worth like $2. So this is the custom ribbon cable that connects the Game Boy Color's motherboard to the new IPS screen. It does all the scaling and conversion on this ribbon. So it's a very customized part. It's really what makes this whole mod possible. So I'm going to get that connected to the screen. It also has the little metal sensor. It's like a capacitance sensor for the touch capacitance brightness control. So that's a little thing dangling off the wires just for the brightness control. So I was going to put all the buttons back in and put it all back together. Just going to temporarily, put the back panel on so I can get the batteries in, and we'll give it a quick test. Take a look at the screen. Get all the screws back together. The quality of this shell was actually surprisingly good. Maybe not the best. It's maybe not quite up there with like those prestige cases, but it's definitely not the worst. And one thing I noticed was I had no issues with stripping screw, like the screw studs, which is an issue I've had with cheap cases in the past. I was in here several times. I had to tweak some things, and taking this apart and putting it back together several times, had no issue stripping out any of the screw holes. So yeah, the quality of this case or shell was actually surprisingly good. Again, for like $15, it's very impressive. So almost the last step, we're gonna stick that sticker on the back that came with the shell. And of course, save the best for last. We'll peel off that clear plastic. So again, this is the second IPS screen that I've done now. And if you haven't seen the IPS screen on the Game Boy Color, it looks outstanding. It's super bright. The contrast is insane. The black levels are so good. There's times where I cannot tell where this, the screen begins and the bezel ends. Like, the black of the bezel and the black of the screen. The black levels on that screen are so good. It blends right in with the black bezel. It's even better than the IPS screen in the Advance in that one regard. The black levels are amazing. So, yeah, if you're playing a game with a lot of black, it looks outstanding. And of course, it's an IPS panel, so the viewing angles are also very good. One last thing I forgot to show, the brightness adjustment. Yeah, you do have 6 levels of brightness adjustment on these IPS Game Boy Colors, and it's just a touch-sensitive sensor underneath the infrared port. So yeah, that's the second IPS Game Boy Color that I've done. This time with that alignment bracket, made it super easy. This one's very easy to do, like I've said before, and the results are insane. Like, the screen looks so good. The contrast and the black levels are so good. The viewing angles are amazing. It is definitely a mod worth doing. If you own a Game Boy Color, definitely consider doing this one.